In today's lesson, we will discuss quartal harmony or quartal chord voicings. This refers to the use of intervals of perfect fourths or sometimes perfect fifths when voicing chords, which creates harmonic ambiguity. Pianists like Bill Evans and later on McCoy Tyner were big proponents of this. We begin as always with a quick example. Let's break down what I just played by going chord by chord and analyzing it. Along the way, we will pick up some interesting concepts. The first chord in the progression is an A major 9, and it's nothing new. We've already covered chord extensions in lesson number 8. The next chord, however, is interesting. This is a G13th sus4 chord, and it's a G13th chord with all degrees in it, but instead of playing the third, I'm playing the fourth degree. I'm also omitting the fifth degree and playing basically in the left hand a set of notes which are perfect fourths apart. You see the G and the C, and the C and the F. Again, this is where the name quartal chords or quartal voicings or voicings in fourths comes from. 13th sus4 chords are quite beautiful, and you can try using them whenever a dominant chord is required. And they can also be approached chromatically from above or below by a 13th sharp 11th chord, which lends a sophisticated motion to the process. For example, here's a 2-5-1 progression in the key of F. Let's go back to the original progression. And the next chord in line is this. Now, I'm playing an F sharp, B, E, A, C sharp, and E. Now this E on top is just doubling the E down here, so I'm just going to play this. And this is in fact a famous chord. This is known as the so what chord. It has garnered this name because Bill Evans played it in the famous Miles Davis album Kind of Blue at the beginning of the first track called So What. Which you should go and have a listen to. Let's try to reverse engineer this chord. Which chord is this really? Well, if we think about it, we can come up with 5 different possible answers. And these are F sharp minor 11th, A major 6-9, B9 sus4, D major 13th, and G major 13th sharp 11. And to see this, we can, let's say, take one of these chords, the B9 sus4, and construct the B major scale. And you'll notice that when I'm playing this, I'm playing the first degree of the B major scale. I'm playing the fourth degree, that's where the sus4 comes from. I'm playing the fifth degree, the flattened seventh degree, and the ninth degree. So this is a B9 sus4. It has all of the notes of a B9 sus4. I've put all of the options on the screen alongside the corresponding scale and degrees for each for you to look at, and I strongly suggest that you come back to this once the video is done and work through each of the cases just to convince yourself that I'm not trying to sell you something that is incorrect. Notice that in all of these voicings, the so what voicing nails the most important degrees in each of these chords: the third, the seventh, the highest degree, and any altered degrees. Because of the use of fourths, you see between the F sharp and the B and E, and E and A, the so what chord doesn't strongly want to resolve to anything in particular and is not strongly associated with any form, which is again a feature, not a bug. This chord is meant to sound ambiguous and is well worth memorizing. Again, any chord that has a name probably is worth dwelling upon. Now, if the 5 options I've given you for this chord seem a bit random, they're not. And the so what chord played on F sharp can be thought of as capturing some of the main degrees of the A major scale, which is the major first degree, the minor sixth, the major fourth, and the sus2, and the only one that is slightly outside the scale is the flattened 7th, namely the G major 13th sharp 11th chord, and you can see this shown on screen, and it's a nice way to memorize things. The so what chord built on the F sharp note is associated with, you can think of it as associated with, the A major scale, and some of the main degrees on that scale. In our progression, the so what chord assumes the role of an F sharp minor 11, and this is followed by a D minor 11, again using a so what chord voicing. This is then followed by an A major 6, 9, which is played like this. Now this time, notice our voicing is one made up entirely of fourths. So we have, starting from C sharp, we have a perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, and a perfect fourth. Now let's try to reverse engineer this collection of perfect fourths, and there's a trick to this. What we can do is we can take the lowest note, the C sharp, and we can move it up 2 octaves, up here. Aha! Now, if you've been paying attention, you might have noticed that what we're doing is, this is basically the so what chord on F sharp, but we're basically inverting it here. Since we've already analyzed this, the so what chord on F sharp, we can already tell the different roles this chord can play. It can play an F sharp minor 11, an A6 9 chord, a B 9 sus 4, a D major 13th chord, or a G major 13 sharp 11th chord. So you can see how in one instance the set of notes, quartal notes, the so what chord initially played an F sharp minor 11th roll, and now it's playing an A6 9 roll. And this form is important to memorize in all 12 keys as an alternative voicing to the so what chord. Going back to the original chord progression, our next chord is a C13 sharp 11th chord, which quickly resolves down to a B minor 11th chord, which is another so what chord built on B. The remaining 2 chords in our original progression repeat previous ideas. The next one is an E 13th sus 4 chord, and this resolves to the A major 9th chord. Now, the voicing I use for the A major 9th chord here at the end is not maybe very special, but I particularly like it because it uses fifths to create a spacious sound. I have a fifth here, and a fifth here, and also basically I have a fourth here, and I could omit the B, and now I have really a voicing that is almost entirely made out of fifths. And there's a nice way to look at this. If you look at a humble A major 7th chord, what you can do is you can take the C sharp and the G sharp and move it down an octave. And you have these nice interlocking fifths, yielding an interesting kind of open sound for the humble major 7th chord. And this is really the basis for the voicing I played. I just added the 9th degree up here. So we've gone through our progression, and there you have it, some common ideas for quartal voicings shown in context, which I hope you will take with you. To conclude today's lesson, I'd like to leave you with some ideas on practice. First and foremost, transposing what I played, the progression initially played, to all 12 keys is a good idea. I cannot overemphasize how important it is to learn ideas within a musical context and not just mindlessly memorize the so what chord and all 12 keys, which is kind of uninteresting and mindless and doesn't really lend itself in musical context. There are many other ways to think about practicing these so what chords. For example, you can try and practice them or move them around in minor thirds meaning 3 semitones. So for example, you can start with a so what chord built on a B, and I'm going to play a C sharp which will resolve to a B up here, and then transpose everything 3 semitones down, and again 3 semitones down, and again, so this motion is kind of interesting to practice things in, and it actually sounds kind of nice when you string these together. So it's a good way to practice things. Of course, this only covers 4 notes, right? B, A flat, F, D, B, A flat, F, D, B, A flat, F, D, and so on. So you'll have to then transpose everything by a semitone and practice again, and then transpose everything by a semitone and practice again. And this will cover all 12 possible notes. Another interesting way to practice these so what voicings and voicings in fourths is to use them within a 2-5-1 context, which are very prevalent in jazz. For example, you can play a D minor 11 to maybe a G dominant 9th chord, or 13th sharp, 13th flat 9 chord. So you can play something like this. You can play a D minor 11 using a so what voicing, and then this G13 flat 9, and then a G minor, a C major 9 or major 7th chord. And again, you can maybe think of practicing this moving around in minor thirds, either up or down. So you can, next in line is and again, you can transpose this by 3 semitones by a minor third up, and you can try again. And of course, you can go it again. And once you do it again, you end up in the original position. So again, practicing things within a 2-5-1 context is another good idea. This is it for today's video. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I will see you next time when we talk about modulations.